Hi and welcome to the third part of this Blender 2.8 sci-fi spaceship and landscape tutorial. Let's open up this folder, and inside the folder we've got version 8 was the last version we was working on. So let's open up version 8 and let's just go to file, save as, and save it as version 9. And let's go to the render view here, render view. So we've got our spaceship, we've got our kind of our scenes. So really this is kind of one of the end frames. This is towards the end of the animation sequence. This is where I think is the best camera position. You're free to choose whichever position you want, where you want the objects to be placed and so forth. But I kind of like this particular scene with the rocks and something quite close, something into the distance. You've got this planet here, got this bigger planet or this moon over here, and you've got the spaceship here with the light hitting behind it. So for me this is kind of like the perfect position to work from for the end frame, right? So we need to work out how long is the duration going to be, and I think we need around, it's quite a detailed scene, so let's give it around 10 seconds, right? So that would be 300 frames because we're going to run it at 30 frames a second. So let's just sort out our frame rate. Let's click here in the output settings and set it to 30 frames a second. And the first thing I want to do is really set my keyframe for this camera position. So let's click on the camera, and what we will do is I'm not sure if we're going to use we probably will end up using multiple cameras at some point, but for now really what I want to do is let's think about this. Maybe we'll leave this camera alone. Actually, let's show you how to use the multiple cameras, right? So let's press Shift and A, and let's insert a new camera. So let's go camera here, and this camera here, let's just call it camera end, right? It's going to be the end of our sequence. So let's call this one camera start, something like this. Let's drag this camera to the main collection at the top. So we've got the camera end and the camera start, and let's press 0. So our camera start is in completely the wrong position. So let's press 0 again. What would be wise is for us to duplicate the camera. Let's turn this one off. Let's see. This camera end, it's better off us duplicating it rather than creating a new camera. So let's click on this camera start. Let's delete it. It doesn't make sense. Let's click on camera end and then press Shift and D, then hit enter. Right, so we've got two camera ends at the same position because this is a better place for us to start our first camera, if that makes sense. Let's just double click in here and delete this and call it start. And then on our timeline, let's just click outside of here. So let's click on this camera start here, and what we want to do is add a keyframe. So let's hit the record button. Let's go to the camera data here, and let's press the letter I and then the letter I here. So this will be our first keyframe added for the location and the rotation of this camera start. What we want to do is click on marker here and add marker. And if we just increase the size of this timeline, we've got a marker here. Now let's click on marker again, and we want to select bind camera to marker. So at the moment, everything that we do in the first set of keyframes or first animation will be marked to this start camera. Then we can shift to other cameras during our animation sequence. We might shift to a few different angles. So let's move across the timeline, and let's say around 2 seconds we're going to be doing something, right? Around 2 seconds should be fine. So in fact we'll give it a little bit more. Let's say around just under 3 seconds. Let's say 80 frames, right? 80 keyframes. We're going to press the letter I here and the letter I here again. And what we do is go back to the first frame. So click this button, go back to the first keyframe, and then we can move our camera. So let's go to, this is actually our camera right now, camera start. And if you remember in my previous tutorial, I told you to go to edit, go to preferences, go to key map, and type in fly, FLY, and then click here and then press Shift and F to set that key, that shortcut key for the fly camera, because we're going to use that now. So we're going to press Shift and F on our keyboard and roll the mouse wheel forward slightly, only a small few increments. Roll it forward like this, and then we want to be looking up a little bit, right, upwards, and then press left click to confirm that, then press G to grab and move the camera downwards. We want to be down at an angle somewhere like around here. We want to try and get maybe somewhere around here. I think will be good. Yeah, around here. It's entirely up to you where you position it. I might rotate it a bit more upwards. So let's press R to rotate, and then let's see, R to rotate. Then, in fact, let's just press Shift and F and move our camera upwards. Let's just do it the easy way. So I want to be more of an angle up, and then we want to bring it down. So press left click to confirm your position, then press G. G grabs the camera, and then we can move it downwards more. Let's move it to around, I think around here would be good. Something around, like around here. This sort of position. So if we were to move our camera now, we can see it's going to move, but it's got some few problems. It's going to hit some buildings or boulders and stuff as we're moving, but we don't want it to move that far anyway. So what we'll do, in fact, this first part we want it to move very little. So what we might do is, there's a couple of ways to do this. Let's think. In fact, let's move it forward to keyframe 80, and let's press Shift F and roll our mouse wheel forward to around, let's press Shift F, let's bring it back a bit, maybe to around here. So our camera will move sort of this direction, right? Like here, this sort of movement, which I think looks pretty cool. So let's go back to the first keyframe, and I want to click on the main ship here, main ship, and I want to rotate the main ship body so that we get these segments showing through. So let's set that to 0. Let's make sure we're on the first keyframe. Let's press the letter I for the location and the I for the rotation. Let's go to frame 80. And probably, to be fair, this rotation is probably going to be happening throughout our whole animation sequence. So we might as well go all the way down to frame 300 and press the letter I here and the letter I here. And we want to rotate it on the Z axis. That's going to give it rotation. And probably over 10 seconds, we want to rotate it maybe, let's say 3 times. So 3 times 360. I'm not going to do maths today. So let's use the calculator. 360 times 3 equals 180. But some smart person on YouTube told me you can just do 360. You can just type in 360 and then use the star and type in 3. And that will be 360 times 3, and it will do the maths for you. So you don't need a calculator. Let's use some of the knowledge that's been shared by these good people on YouTube. So thank you for that, whoever wrote that in one of the comments on one of my tutorials. Well, thank you for that. So I think maybe that's a bit too much. Let's just play it and see how fast it's actually rotating. I don't think that's too bad actually. It's not rotating too fast. It's not that crazy fast or anything. And maybe let's just go forward a few frames. This inside segment, so that would be ship. Let's see. Let's turn on our overlays. That's going to help us a lot, right? Turn on overlays, and we can actually see what we're clicking. And we're clicking on this inside part here, this bit. And maybe we'll rotate that the other way. Let's just see if it makes kind of, yeah, you can see it rotating, right? So let's press 0. Let's go to the first keyframe, and we've got that inside part selected. It's ship segment 2. Let's press I here and I here. Let's go all the way to the end of the keyframe or the end of the timeline. Click this one here, that takes us to the end. Press the letter I and the letter I, and we want to do 1080, right? 1080, 1080 should I say. And then we want to go to the beginning and set it to minus, because we want to go minus opposite direction. So let's see how that works out. We might not see, let's turn off our overlays. We can actually see that rotation. So I'm quite happy with that rotation, and depending on what we do with our camera next, we can affect how this all looks, right? So let's just see from here. Let's just position our lighting a bit better, right? So we can get the lighting to show these shards of light coming through this spaceship. It look pretty cool. So let's try and move our light source. So let's go to the light source, which is here, the sunlight. Let's go to its location, And what we'll do is we're going to move our light source probably a few different directions. So let's just try and move it first. Let's move it this way. Let's get it to around here. We're going to change its rotation. You just light it up the way that you like it, right? That's what you're doing. Just get the lighting, just rotate it and find out where do you like the lighting to be. And I think our camera is quite low here, right? So we're not going to see those sort of shards of light, but I think that looks pretty cool, right, with the shadows like that. I like that. That first part is cool. So let's go to frame 1, and let's hit the letter I here and the letter I here for the sunlight, and then go to frame 80 and then hit the letter I here and the letter I here. So in between those keyframes, our sunlight will be positioned, and maybe on frame 80 we're going to, let's try and adjust it a little bit to get it to somewhere around here. I think it's going to look good. Really, we're casting these shadows, you see, off of the ship. It's going to cast these shadows. Okay, so our ship is very static, isn't it? And we want it to move a little bit. So let's click on our empty. We're going to animate the empty now. And let's press the letter I and the letter I here. So we're going to animate the empty. That's the first keyframe. Let's move to frame 80 and press the letter I here and the letter I here. And let's go back to frame 1. And let's just press G to grab. And let's just grab our spaceship and place it kind of behind this rock a little bit, right? So it's showing a little bit. Let's click play. And now our spaceship will move to that position. So it's got some movement to it. We want some movement to it, right? I don't want it to be static all the time. Let's click on this big old rock at the top there. What is it called? Planet 1. And let's press the letter I here and the letter I here. And we want to rotate this. You can rotate it clockwise or anti-clockwise. Let's go to the final keyframe, because that thing is going to be rotating throughout our whole animation. So let's press I and I here. And on the Z frame, or the Z rotation, we want to set it to, maybe we just set it to 1080, right? Just straight 1080, rotate 3 times, thank you very much. And it will rotate. And I reckon it will look better if it rotated a lot slower. It's way too fast, right? That rock is way too fast. So let's go to that end keyframe, and let's set it to something like 360. So it'll only be 1 rotation throughout the whole 300 frames. Let's see. And for me, because the spaceship is rotating this way and the object is rotating the same kind of direction, it doesn't look quite right to me. So I want this thing to rotate the other way, and I want to even rotate it less than that. So let's set it to minus 180. So it's going to have a small amount of rotation, like this. And even I think that's too much rotation. It's even moving too fast now. So let's go back to the end frame, and let's set it to minus 90 degrees. So it's only going to rotate 90 degrees. And I think that might be the one. I want it to be really slow rotation. For me, even that's too fast. That rotation there is too fast. So let's set it to, sometimes in Blender you've got to experiment, right? Nothing is perfect the first time. So let's set it to something like minus 30 degrees. So we just reduce it down until we're happy with the rotation, right? I think that's going to be okay. It's rotating really slow, maybe even slower than that. Even I think that's too fast, because the big objects, right? It's in the distance, it's like some massive object, and we want it to rotate slowly. So let's set it to minus 10. So we just get a little bit of rotation out of it on that end keyframe. So it's only rotating 10 degrees throughout this whole 300 frames. And we'll see what that looks like now. Yeah, and I like it's just rotating really, really slowly. That's what I want. Okay. So we're working up to frame 80 now. So on frame 80 we need to be doing something else. And what I think we'll do, let's just untick the record button. Let's go to the first frame and check it. And I think up to here, I think, you know, the spaceship, in all fairness, should be hidden behind the rock, right? It seems a bit silly that it's showing straight away. Well, maybe it's okay, I don't know. Let's just hit the record button and move it. Hit the record button, we're going to move the empty. So click on the spaceship empty, press G to grab it. And let's just move it behind the rock and click play. And then it will show through like this. And I think that's better, to be fair. I think it looks better that way, rather than it already being in the scene. Let's see. Okay, I think that's fine. Now we've got from frame 80 to, let's double it up, 8, 16, 160, right? So between these two frames, I want to do something with the camera. I reckon it would be nice to switch camera position. So let's do that. Let's just minimize this empty at the moment, because we're pretty much done with that. Apart from the empty itself, we don't really need to animate the objects inside. Let's click on the. Let's see. First of all, let's untick this record button. Let's go to frame 80, and on frame 80 we want to switch to a different camera. We don't really want to use the end camera because that's kind of our end sequence that will happen later. So what we will do is duplicate. This is what is this camera? This is our start camera here right now. So let's duplicate that start camera. That's a good position for us to start from. So let's click on it, press Shift and D to duplicate it, and let's call this start camera 1. Alright, or you can call it middle camera or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it start camera 1. This is our next step, and we want to change, we want to tell Blender to change and switch to this camera. So to do that, let's go to marker, add a marker, then marker and bind to camera. Make sure camera 1 is selected when you do that, right? Bind to this camera, and now Blender will play the first camera, and when it gets to frame 8 it's going to switch to this new camera from a different angle. So now we just need to position that camera. So let's go ahead and press the letter Shift and F, and that allows us to fly the camera. Let's move the camera over here somewhere. Let's move the mouse wheel forward. Let's just rotate it around here. Let's move the mouse wheel backwards. I want to try and capture it from, let's click here, roughly around here. Let's see. So now our camera will go from here and then switch. It should switch here, right? Let's see. Okay, we didn't hit the record button. So let's go back to frame 80. Click on camera 1, start. Make sure the record button is on. If you don't do that, the camera won't record where you're positioning the camera. So we'll press Shift and F. Let's move to the left a bit and move backwards, right? So rotate the mouse wheel backwards and move to the left. And then let's press G to grab, and let's grab it and move it to the side over here somewhere. And then press Shift and F, and let's rotate it around this sort of angle. Maybe I want to have it looking, let's see, I think it's a little bit higher, so let's press G to grab and bring it down to about here. I think maybe like here is pretty cool, right? You can see these big rocks here, you've got the other rocks in there, you've got the ship here, you've got the planet, and you've got this other planet in the background there. So imagine this is our, let's untick the record button. So when we move across our timeline, it's going to hit frame 80 and switch to a different camera angle. That's what it's going to do. So we want to change our light source here. So let's go to the sunlight. Let's hit the record button. And let's go to frame 81. 81. And on frame 81 we want to change the position of the light, so let's press I and I here, and then we can just rotate it to change the location of where that light source is. So let's just rotate it to something like this. You just got to experiment and see where you want to position it. I kind of want it like around, maybe on this one we'll have the light source flow across the screen. I think that might be pretty cool. So on this Z axis, I'm going to set it to 0. So it's around here somewhere. And then I'm going to go to frame 160. Let's move to frame 160. And then I'm going to press the letter I, then the letter I here, and I'm going to rotate. I'm going to move this light source in the minus direction to around 46, something like this. So in theory, our light source is going to move across the screen like this. So while that light source is moving, we want our ship to be moving a little bit as well, right? So let's click on the ship empty, and the last keyframe, the last movement was on frame 80. So we don't want to do anything on frame 80, we want to go to frame 81. One frame after frame 80, we'll press the letter I and the letter I here, and then we'll go to frame 160. We can just type in 160 here and press the letter I, then the letter I here. Now it's down to you how you want to move this object. You could rotate it a bit more, so maybe we could click on the empty, and let's see, we could rotate, not rotate on this angle, we don't want to rotate on that angle. Let's see, maybe we can rotate it this way slightly, just so like it's leveling out, right? So from this camera angle it's flying out, it's going to switch to this camera angle and it starts to level out, but obviously it's very static, so we need to move it a bit. So let's click it on this frame 160, let's just press G to grab and we'll move it to around here. So let's untick the record button, move to like frame 60, click play. It's going to be like here, switch to this angle, it's going to be moving this way, and it's going to get to here. Okay, so I think from frame 160, we can animate up to frame 300, our end sequence where this ship's going to fly away, right? So maybe that's going to be quite a slow movement, maybe a bit too slow. Maybe we've got space to do one more thing. So from 160 to maybe 230, around here. Maybe we've got another camera we can add, maybe show a different angle. So maybe we do that. Let's click on camera start 1. Let's press Shift and D to duplicate it. So move to the viewport, press Shift and D to duplicate it. Call it camera start 2. Really, this camera start 2. Let's click on camera start 1. Camera start 1. Let's see. Not get camera start. Let's see, camera start 1. Let's see. So we didn't really move this camera, right? On frame 160, we should have already moved the camera for camera start 1. So we moved the object, we moved the light, but we didn't move the camera. So let's move that camera a little bit. We need to move it a little bit. So let's move to frame 160, and on camera start 1, let's press the letter I here and the letter I here. Not for this scale. It doesn't really matter. Let's undo that. Let's untick the scale ones. It's really the location and rotation. So on this frame 160, from 80, that's where our other camera start is. Then to frame 160, let's try and move the camera a bit, right? Let's see. So all we'll do is press Shift and F, and I think maybe we'll move outwards a little bit so we can see more of the scene. Let's press G to grab. Let's move our camera this way a bit. Let's move it up a bit, in fact. Maybe around here somewhere. Like around here. I think here will be good. Okay, then on frame 161, let's see, let's go to camera start 2. Now camera start 2 is going to be where camera start 1 was. We don't want that. So let's right click and delete it. And we're gonna take camera start 1, press shift and D to duplicate it again, and then just hit the enter key or escape, and then change it to camera start 2, because we want that one to start where or roughly we want it to be positioned roughly where the last one was left off, right? So let's press the letter. In fact, before we do anything, we need to tell Blender to switch to that camera start 2. So let's insert a keyframe on 616. You can do it on 160, but I think 616 is wiser. One frame forward. 161 should I say. 161. Add marker. And then marker, make sure the camera 2 is selected, and select it to bind camera to marker. So then between these two keyframes, it will switch. Let's move to frame 240 maybe. That sort of distance. That should be fine. Let's press the letter I here and the letter I here. And then maybe we'll move our camera and then we'll move the objects or the light source afterwards. Maybe we should, yeah, let's do that first. So on the camera, let's press shift and F, and let's just drag it to, let's see, we want to keep moving around this way. Let's press shift and F and move it forward, and then let's press shift and F and let's rotate around so we can see more of this planet over here. Maybe we'll have it a bit higher up, and I want to bring it back a bit, so press shift and F and use the mouse wheel to roll it back to around. Let's try and get all of those objects, the full sphere here and the spaceship here. So if we now see our camera will move to here, and on that first keyframe, this one here, 161 for the camera, let's press the letter I and the letter I here. Really I want to move that position. I don't want it to be, when the camera switches, I want it to switch angle, right? To a different angle. So let's press G to grab. Let's grab it and move it over here, a bit higher up. And let's press shift F and rotate it around here. Then our camera will move this way. It's going to switch angle. That switch isn't very good, so we need to make it a bit more dramatic. So let's press shift F and rotate it around this way further, and press G to grab it and move it maybe around it. Let's bring it onto this side over here. Let's see, we want to keep some land in there, right? We're going to go off the land. Let's rotate it more. Shift F and go to the left, and then G to grab it and move it across to somewhere like here. I think that would be okay. Okay, so now let's click on our ship empty, spaceship empty here, and on frame 161, let's press the letter I here, then the letter I here, go to frame 240, press the letter I and then the letter I here. And we need to move it from this position somewhere else. So this is kind of, let's go to, let's see, here. So I want it to be moving towards this object, right? So let's click on the ship empty, press G to grab it, and let's just move it more towards that object. I want it to be, and the last scene is going to be flying away from that object, right? So let's see. So here we want to animate our light source. So let's go to frame 161. Let's click on the sunlight, press the letter I and then the letter I here. Go to frame 240, press the letter I and the letter I here. And then go, you can click this button here. This will take you back one keyframe to 161. And let's see what's going on here. That's the first keyframe, right? Let's see, click here, here, here. 161 keyframe for the light source, and then we want to rotate that light source. Let's bring it back into, let's see, maybe around here. Let's rotate it upwards to like here. I'm trying to get these cool rays of light. That's what I want. So let's click play from here. Let's see what happens. Kind of fades out, right? It moves over to here somewhere. So let's just rotate that. Let's see. Let's try and get it brighter up here. Maybe to like here. This is looking pretty flat, this ship. So let's click on this spaceship empty. And let's see, let's try and rotate it. Maybe this way a bit. So it's at this sort of angle. So we can see the underneath of it rather than being very flat. Maybe on this keyframe, this one here, let's rotate it the other way, like this, slightly. So as it moves, it's going to rotate and show the back underneath of it. And I think we're almost done, right? So let's go to frame 241. On frame 241, we want to switch to our main camera, which was, so let's add a marker, add marker. Let's go to marker, let's click on end camera here, end camera, and let's go to the marker and bind it to the end camera. So now we can see what the end scene looks like. And our spaceship's just about to fly off this, right? So let's get that spaceship a bit more into view. So we can either move the spaceship, but let's first of all sort out the camera. So let's click on the camera, press the letter I and the letter I here. And I think we'll rotate it so we can see a bit more of the ship. So let's go to our last keyframe, frame 300. Let's press I and I here. And then go back a keyframe, click this button. That will take you back to frame 241. And press the letter, in fact press Shift and F, and let's just rotate it so we can see a bit more of it. Let's see, we've moved it quite fast, it's almost gone past this object, right? So let's press Shift and F, let's bring it back. Maybe we fly it towards it. We could just fly off the angle here. Or maybe it'd be nice if it flew towards the camera. That would be pretty cool, right? It's like this end scene. Maybe if we get it Shift and F. Maybe if we get it like centered out nicely. Somewhere around here. Maybe on these last frames. We'll get it to fly towards the camera. So let's go to frame 300. I think that might look okay. Let's press the letter. We've already got keyframes here. Press I and I here. We've got keyframes. Press Shift and F on that keyframe. We'll move it slightly. Get it roughly to the same position, but maybe we'll have it slightly higher. So there'll be a little bit of camera movement here. It's a bit too high. Press Shift and F. Let's bring it down a bit more. So around here. There'll be a small amount of camera movement here. And then on frame 300, let's see, let's go back to frame 241. Let's go to the ship empty, press the letter I and the letter I here. Its position should be fine on this frame. Let's go to the last frame, press I and I here, and now somehow we want to move this towards the camera. So I think Y-axis, let's just manually move it. There's a few ways to move this thing, right? But let's just try and get it close to the camera. This is a bit of a lazy way of moving. We could have moved the camera to the object, but I think moving it to the camera is a better idea. Don't really want to go inside, right? Just want to get it to where it's covering the whole camera lens, like around. You don't have to cover it all, but most of the camera lens. So around here, this should be good. Right around here, and then I want to do a camera blur at the end, so it just blurs out, and it will have these red lights and stuff on it. So like here, it will fly towards the camera and blur out. So let's sort out our camera blur at the beginning. Let's click on our first camera, start camera. So this is the start camera. Here on this first frame, and it's going to show us this, right? So what I want to do is go to the camera settings here on the start camera, make sure the record button is on, go to the very first keyframe, and then on the depth of field, open it, and then press the letter I on focus distance here, and then move to frame 80 and press the letter I for focus distance here. And then let's see, we want to go to frame, let's say around frame 60, press the letter I here. So we want to go back to frame 1 now and set the camera blur to around 0.4, maybe less, 0.2, something like this. Let's just click play. It's going to blur out like this, and then on frame 60 we still want it to be a bit blurred out, so we're going to set it to like 0.5. Maybe that's a bit too much. Let's set it to 0.8. So from the first frame it's going to be quite blurry. You're going to see this object coming in, and then it's going to sharpen up. Switch to this angle, and then switch to this one, and then finally switch to this one where it's flying towards the camera. So that's camera end. So let's click on the camera end, go back to the first keyframe of that one. Let's see, we want to, so on frame 241 we want to press the letter I here to insert a keyframe, and go to the end keyframe 300, press the letter I here as well. I'm not sure if this is going to work. Let's see, for some reason we can't focus the camera here. It's like kind of grayed out, so I need to work out why that is. Let's have a look. Should let us do that. Maybe you can only focus distance on one camera, but I'm pretty sure you should be able to do it on more than one. The record button is on. Let's go to frame, maybe it was on the wrong keyframe. Frame 241, end camera. So it should really, maybe you can only do a camera focus on one of the cameras for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it's grayed out like this. It shouldn't be grayed out like that. So I don't know, maybe we can't do that. So let's see how it ends anyway. And that's a bit strange that we can't put a camera focus on this particular camera. Maybe it's on the start camera we can do that. Maybe we need to set a keyframe. Let's see. Let me try one thing here. Let's try and put a keyframe here. Then go to the end camera. No, that's not going to work either. So let's just get rid of that keyframe here. So I think we might have to settle for maybe the ship flying like this. I can't work out how to do the camera blur at the end. Maybe we'll get the camera to move up and the ship will fly over the top of the, or the camera will move just over the top of the ship. Maybe we'll do that just to finish off this tutorial. So let's click on the end camera, and right now it's positioning. We need to increase its height because we want to fly over the top of the ship, right? We want the ship to fly underneath it. So maybe around here we can raise the camera as the ship's flying forward. Might be pretty cool actually. And just have like this ship fly over the underneath it. So we need to move that ship a bit more. So let's go to the ship empty. We're on the right keyframe. We just need to try and get it to move past the camera. Let's see. Let's just move it this way. And we'll bring it down. I think that might give us the effect. Yep, that's the one. Would have liked to have the camera blur at the end. I'll try and work out how to do that. If there's something I'm missing, I have to read up on, but we'll figure it out in another tutorial. So let's go to File, Save. Let's go to File, Save As. Let's save this as version 10. And then let's render it out because I think I'm quite happy with it. So let's turn off the record button. I think it looks all good here. And let's just render this out. So let's go to frame 1. Let's go to our output settings. Let's set the render to 128. We can leave the viewport 128, don't really matter. In the volumetrics, these settings should be fine as default for now. Let's go to the output. Let's set the type to AVI JPEG. We'll click the open folder and we'll go to my desktop. Let's go into this tutorial, click accept, press Ctrl S to save, and then Ctrl and F12 to render. So Blender will now go and render out each one of our 300 frames. That's going to take a bit of time because quite a lot of things going on in this scene. So I'll pause the video and we'll come back and check the final animation afterwards. Okay, so Blender's finished rendering out all of the 300 frames. So we can see the last frame here. Let's close this and let's just go to File, Save, and minimize this. And inside this folder we should see an AVI file. If we open that, we can watch the animation and then we can look at how we might go about improving it. So let's just watch it a few times. I think the camera switching is good, but I think there needed to be, I'm just not quite convinced that the camera, this one here, I don't think it's quite right. The last one I like the most, and this one at the beginning, I think it's pretty cool. I like this one because the lighting is moving in there. Maybe we should have moved our light source a bit more in this last one as well. But overall I think it's pretty good. It didn't take too long to create this and I can definitely see ways of improving it. But overall, you know, I'm quite happy with the end result. Let's have a look here. I think, let's pause this and slow it down a little bit. So I think this part here is pretty good. The camera jump between here and here, I'm not convinced that's the best sort of angle. I think we should have come at a different angle because you can still see this object and this object. They're all in the same sort of position. And when we switch to the other camera angle, you still got those three in that same position. So we should have really switched to another angle where we didn't see them in that same sort of V position. It would have looked better because the camera would have been, you know, it just would have looked better, I think. From here, it's pretty good. This one I like quite a lot as well because you've got the big planet in the background. Got this one coming into the screen over here, and the lighting's pretty good in this one as well. But the last one I like the most, with it flying towards the camera. I think that was a wise move. I was going to do a camera blur here. I couldn't work out how to do it. But I think between this transition and this one, I think they're pretty good. So overall, I'm quite happy with the end result. The lighting didn't come out too bad either. I do like the volumetric lighting where it's flaring off here. I think that looks pretty cool. Could have put a bit more detail in our model here, but you know, it's pretty far away from the camera, so I don't think it was too much of a problem. I like the lens blur here as well. And I think in this one here, we should have maybe moved that light source as well in this first section. I think that would have been wise as well. Maybe that light could have been coming from left to right or right to left. I think that would improve this part of the animation because it's pretty static here, the light source. So you can see with the lights moving here, it looks pretty cool. This one here, I reckon would have been better off moving it from the right side to the left. I think that would have looked better as well. But it's okay, it's fine. And this one I like the most for the light source. I think it's pretty cool because it kind of moves with the camera as well, with the object. It's moving at the same sort of rate across the screen. So it's kind of following the object here. And you get some nice lighting effects here. And then finally this one, maybe we should have moved that light across the screen, but I do like the last part here. These two bits here I like the most. I think they look pretty cool. So I don't know what you think. Hopefully your one came out pretty cool as well. If you make any sort of if you end up rendering it out and uploading it to YouTube, or you make something nice out of this, maybe you change it completely, you make your own version, then definitely send me a link on the YouTube comments, or if you see this on Facebook, you can send me a link there as well, and I'll be very interested to see what you guys come up with. Okay, let's click this, let's close this down. That's the end of this tutorial. Look forward to seeing you on the next DCP Web tutorial.